another chaos interview with who's turning out to be my chaos expert on this channel, Crash Test.
Hello.
To be more specific about what we're talking about noise marines, not sound marines, noise marines. Is that correct?
Yes, definitely noise marines for legal reasons and copyright reasons.
From what I know of your history with the 40k game, you play Slaanesh, which has the Emperor's children as under the Chaos God of Slaanesh. While doing my research, I learned that not all noise marines are Emperor children, yet they are all followers of Slaanesh. Is that correct?
Slaanesh is the overriding god of the faction, and Fulgrim and the Emperor's children have gone down that path. There are some noise marines, but they're not really noise marines. There's some Emperor's children that, when the heresy began, didn't quite gel with the whole let's have some fun, shall we say. But Fulgrim and Horus, they decided to solve that problem on a little planet called Istvan, where, shall we say, many who didn't quite gel with the new direction were, shall we say, silenced permanently, forever. Go with the flow, dudes. Go with the flow.
Before we get too far into this conversation, what exactly is a noise marine?
Noise marines are the result of Bekwa Kinska and her lovely, I'm going to pronounce this badly, Maravaglia? I can never say it. She created, essentially, instruments for her amazing one-off session that was bonkers. And that was the beginning of the Emperor's Children, as far as I'm concerned, modern Emperor's Children. Because the music, the performance, the craziness of it brought forth the demons and created this giant blood orgy of doom. And it was at that point, Emperor's Children, no longer loyalist in any way, shape or form, they're full chaos. The instruments that she created during the nightmare of everyone getting murdered, the actual Marines that were there watching the performance kind of then picked them up and carried on playing, and then it turned out they were quite destructive. Sonic Blaster, you played it and the Blastmaster, the Doom Siren, these sort of instruments that were absolutely bonkers but were super effective. Could even argue more effective than a bolt gun. And so from that, they incorporated it into their daily arms and their noise marines. They started kind of literally fusing with it, kind of like Demon Machine and everything. And so a noise marine is essentially a nutter with a giant guitar. That's it. They're just hardcore dudes who shoot sound waves at you in one way or another and blow you up.
From my research, the noise marines existed before the Horus Heresy. That doesn't make sense to me because from what I know, Horus fell first and then his brothers fell first. Isn't that accurate?
Quote Doctor Who, wibbly wobbly timey wimey. The path of the fall, or as I call it, the Enlightenment, is kind of like mixy, because you've got the beginning of where Lorgar essentially became aware of chaos first. Then he wrote this book that apparently is like important and used by the entirety of the Imperium now. Funny that. Their entire religion is based upon the Chaos Worshippers book. Then from that, he kind of started whispering Horus's ear. Then Horus kind of got stabbed by accident. Then there was the whole let's kill people as we're trying to save the War Master. Oops. Well, if civilians are going to get in the way, move, or this giant 10-foot super soldier will stand on you. And then he kind of, had his visions with the chaos gods, as it were, and that's at the point where he tipped over and became chaos, and he started to lay the foundations. Now, this is technically the very beginning of the Horus Heresy, but it's not the actual kind of full Horus Heresy. That was essentially at the Istvan site drop massacre. Once Horus had kind of made that tipping point, he then started to say, right, let's figure out who's with me, who's against me. Hey, Mortarion, how you doing, buddy? Want to be a smelly invader? Cool, Nurgle's your man. Hey, Araman and Zeechy dude, Magnus, who definitely did things wrong. Don't care, that's not an argument. He did things wrong. Hey, do you want to do some psychic stuff? Cool. Zeech is your boy over there. Fulgrim, hey, buddy, you like doing impossible things. There's a little planet over here. It's called Lear. Kind of crazy. Go on, day to go and beat it up. And then, of course, because he's quite a prideful and flash git, I could do it in a year. No, I will do it in 7 days. Don't get me wrong, he did actually take the planet and made it compliant in like record time, but then it was a Slaanesh demon world, essentially. And then he found the magic sword in the magic temple, which also happened to have a demon in it, which then just began the little whispers, which is how Slaanesh gets you. It just starts off with a little whisper of, hey, just try this. It's okay. Just try a bit of this. And so that's kind of where it all began, really. But it's a matter of, where do you say it begins? Is it from when, like, the drop site massacre happened and they officially were at that point traitors? Or would you say it began earlier when they started doing weird and wonderful stuff against the Eldar? Or was it way back when Lorgar first wrote the Litigardus? I personally say that it began when, the birth of the Legion, as it were, was when Kinska did her performance, and everyone finally just went, let's go for it.
Noise Marines just take the teachings of through to the max, noise the max, to the max. Is that accurate?
Yeah. Well, it's the whole thing with Slaanesh and Noise Marines is it's the what is it? It's the lesson of diminishing returns. They always want to feel the newest thing, the newest sensation, whether they're good or bad. It doesn't matter. Everything's cool and new, as long as it's new and it's, think of like ADHD on methamphetamines. That's entry level. As soon as you do the newest thing, it then gets old. So you got to do another new to get more and more and more and more. The chili peppers, prime example. You start off with a tiny little, that's a bit spicy, and then you build it up, and then by the time you're on a ghost pepper, you go back to your original beginning little chili pepper, and you're like, oh, what is this? This is like a mint in comparison. And that is Noise Marines Slaanesh in general.
With Noise Marines being distinctively called Noise Marines, I'm willing to bet that Slaanesh gives them unique blessings. How exactly does she bless that sound Noise Marines?
So, generally it's to do with like their abilities, because they're going to the max. They can do even more superhuman, shall we say, than a standard Space Marine. Don't get me wrong, there's still a Space Marine, which is a genetic freak, makes Arnold Schwarzenegger look like a tiny little ant in comparison. But then they can go even more with pain, even more with with noise, with abilities, with speed, with all of this lot. So in game time, in game wise, what it's traditionally, it's like they get to strike first because they're faster, or they can take combat drugs to pump them up because they're all addicts, or they can do like fighting upon death, whereas like a normal death wound would kill them off. No, because they're going all out and everything. So that's kind of how they're doing it, because they just won't necessarily know when to give up. And that's where Slaanesh is kind of like, hey, go for it. As long as you're having fun and providing me with new kind of feelings, thoughts, sensations, whatever, I will bless you.
The other 40k factions have sound weapons, or is that just a noise marine thing?
So there is something, actually, I was looking at this on up. There's something called vibro weapons, which are kind of vibrations, but they're not necessarily sound, as it were. I mean, who knows? It's 40k. There probably is something. A lot of digital weapons, as they're known as, the little like ring ones. They could probably do something like a wing. Technically, Doctor Who is officially in the Warhammer universe. Long story. So you have got a sonic screwdriver. Way back in 80 something, I want to say 88, 89. Citadel Miniatures, which is Games Workshop's technical miniature range, had the contract for D&D models and sci-fi magazine models and stuff, and one of them was Doctor Who. So officially speaking, way back when, the Citadel and Warhammer created Daleks and Doctor Who miniatures, which means you could use them in game legally because they're an official Citadel model.
This is a very... I feel like this is a question not worth asking because of how much you seem to enjoy noise marines, but do you have any noise marines as part of your army?
Let's see. Currently, well, I have got 10 squads of 5, so 50 noise marines, all with sonic blasters and blast masters. Then currently I've also got another 10 that are based around combat only chainsaws. Then I've probably got another 27 that I put on bikes. And then I've got all the time. Yes, I have a few.
Is there anything that separates a noise marine from an regular Emperor's Children?
Mostly the weapon. That's what it comes down to. Because noise marines specifically generally have sonic blasters, blast masters, doom sirens. However, some of them, it's more of it's because of the unit type within the game. Noise marines were always considered more elite than a basic space marine legionnaire kind of thing. So they're kind of their own world, and that's why they automatically have like the mark of Slaanesh built upon them and stuff, and they get an extra attack and things like that. And they're meant to be an elite choice in a generic army, but in an Emperor's Children specific army, they become troops because, well, it's meant to be their bread and butter.
So what cool things have noise marines done in the lore?
Some of the greatest ones are actually from those who chose not to fall, as they say. So one of my favorite ones, ironically, is from the ancient dreadnought Rylana, or Rylanor, how do you say it, who was like one of the oldest Emperor's Children, and he was in a dreadnought, and he was just absolutely hilarious. Very dry sense of humor, but then he was like thousands of years old. And when he at the Istvan site, he kind of went and disappeared with people for a while, but he eventually kind of started doing some tappings. He created like a signal to try and get attention from Fulgrim, because he knew he was trapped and whatever, and eventually he does, and Fulgrim comes along to find Rylanor, and he's like, hello, I'm going to screw you, daddy, for you have destroyed the Emperor's Children's name. and Fulgrim starts doing sick and twisted stuff because it's Fulgrim. Use full demon prints at this stage. And oddly, as well, because of the like space Morse code he was doing or whatever, it attracted some Thousand Suns. Good old psychic dudes. And of course, they kind of get into it, Fulgrim and Rylanor, and he's beating the hell out of him and all of this lot, and he starts saying some sick and twisted stuff. But Rylanor has a plan. Hey, Dad, nuke. He literally summoned, his Primarch to blow him up with a nuke out of spite. How cool is that? And then, just for added fun, the Thousand Suns that were kind of watching this froze time, as it were, as the explosion was happening, because they're like, oh no, it's a Primarch, can't do it. But then, because Fulgrim was being such a sick and twisted bastard, they went, you know what? And they literally blew up everything just because they hated Fulgrim so much and thought he was so disgusting.
Are sound troops just a thing from 40k, from Warhammer, or do they exist in other media like Warhammer Fantasy, or are they just Warhammer?
So Noise Marines, specifically Noise Marines, and this is why I was very on them. They're like a specific copyright and IP to Games Workshop. A bit like, as we all know, Warhammer Space Marines, 40k. But in a court of law, they couldn't actually copyright that. So that's why now they're called the Adeptus Astartes. But Noise Marine was so unique they could. So that's why it's specifically a Noise Marine is 40k. As for like sound weaponry, well, it's been used everywhere. D20 Modern, even Farscape TV show, it's in there. Technically, if you look at Star Wars, who's Jar Jar Binks? His race, they use big noise cannons to do it. So the concept of sonic weaponry has been around for donkey shonks. Hell, even the US military actually uses them. They use a sound-based system to as like crowd control. And in the 60s and 70s during MK Ultra, they were trying to develop various sound-based things to disrupt the enemy. I'm sure it's still happening today somewhere, but shh, not allowed to talk about those.
What's stopping let's say Dark Angel from killing a Noise Marine and then picking up the Sound Blaster and using it? Is anything stopping that from happening in the lore?
Couple of things really. So, number one, generally the actual weapon, you can actually kind of see it on the model. It's kind of infused in with the Marine. It's like it's one with the Marine now. So, whereas normally, you see with a bolter guy, they've got their gun and they're holding it like this. With a Noise Marine, the actual hand and all the wiring goes into it now. So it's kind of fused. So that's part one. Part two, it's more of actually from a lore side, an Adeptus Astartes would never dare touch such heresy. If he did, he would have to cleanse himself with Promethium. How could I? These are the sort of nutters that are so dog-minded, blinded, that they wouldn't even use like the bullets of a traitor. They'd rather run out of bullets than pick up a magazine and a bolter of a fallen, chaos person. Stupid, fair enough. Whereas you see, like, on the other side, bullets, man, let's go shooting. So, who's the more sensible, really?
And I guess an orc wouldn't use it because it doesn't make enough DACA.
Oh, no. Orc will use anything. You just need to believe. Believe in it, and it becomes more daiquiri. And ironically, DACA is being used real world right now. In Ukraine, you can look this up. The Ukrainian soldiers are currently attaching bullets to their RPGs to give it more DACA.
As you know, I like to end my interviews with the same question. Anyone or anything you would like to shout out at this time?
I just want to give a shout out to my two favorite Canadian YouTubers, Sid the Shadow and Stay and Play Games.
Thank you for joining me. If you would like to join my Discord to talk to me at class, the link is in the description, as well as the links to the people he shouted out.
Bye.